The Theory of Flight, Part 3, The Present. Chapter 7, Valentine. Valentine Tanaka looks at the man himself and cannot help but think that he does not quite fit in these surroundings. He is too large for the medium-sized office, too modern for the antiquated furnishings, and too shiny for the dust-covered surfaces. There was a time when the size of the man himself bespoke a presence to be reckoned with, but that was years ago, when the country was newly independent and the man himself had just taken over the organization of domestic affairs. He had carried his weight with authority. He had been nimble on his feet, a man of activity, dashing out of cars, bounding up and down stairs, never out of breath, a reminder of his predecessor, Emile Coetzee. But now here he sits, wheezing, sweating, unable to catch his breath. Now his considerable weight, no longer athletic, time has seen to that, hangs off him, giving him a sagging appearance that promises to fold in on itself some day soon. This is why, even as he sits, he needs to prop himself up with a cane. There is that familiar glint in the eyes of the man himself, mischief, malice, mayhem. Valentine can never really tell which one it is. The glint always makes Valentine wonder what kind of schoolchild the man himself had been. Because he has never been able to imagine the man himself as a boy, he always conjures up a miniature version of the man himself, sitting behind a desk, the old-fashioned kind that you opened and that had as its pride an immaculate inkwell. On a slotted wooden chair that pinches. Not the miniature the man himself knows this, because at this very moment his bottom is off his chair, his hand eagerly raised as he screams, "Me, me, me," leaning over his desk, trying to get the attention of a colonial schoolmaster whose studied lack of interest lets everyone know, without a doubt, that he is British. "Me, me, me," the miniature the man himself screams. "Absolutely no need for all this excitement, I assure you," the disinterested schoolmaster says. "A hand quietly raised will get my attention. But I suppose it cannot be helped. It is in your natures to make a cacophony, empty vessels, and all that." Valentine watches as the eyes of the miniature the man himself glinted, mischief, malice, mayhem. "I suppose you are wondering to what you owe the pleasure of my company," the man himself says as he wipes his face with a pristine white handkerchief, interrupting Valentine's reverie. "Yes, sir." The man himself looks at Valentine long and hard. Valentine knows that it is best not to look away. The man himself reaches into his pocket, his eyes never leaving Valentine's, and places something carefully on the table. "You owe it to this." Valentine looks at the thing on the table. It is the most precious and beautiful something that he has ever seen. Its beauty makes him want to touch it. He only realizes that he has reached out his hand to touch it when the man himself snatches it up and secretes it away in his pocket. "I would like to think that you and I are friends." Valentine cannot help but think that the man himself starts many conversations in this way, conversations that do not end particularly well for the listener. Or am I wrong? Are we not friends? "We are friends." "Good. That is what I thought. Why, I knew I could trust you." The man himself looks at Valentine long and hard again. "I can trust you, can't I?" Yes, you can trust me," Valentine says, not particularly liking who he is at this moment, a man so uncertain that all he can do is try to please. "Good. I knew I could," the man himself says, as he once again removes the precious and beautiful something from his pocket, places it between his thumb and forefinger, and rolls it back and forth, making it glimmer like a beacon. He no longer trusts Valentine enough to place it on the table between them. "As soon as I saw it, I thought, Valentine Tanaka will be the man for this job. He is someone who can be trusted, a friend." Valentine is too mesmerized by the precious and beautiful something to look at the man himself. "You'll never guess where I found it," the man himself says, looking particularly pleased with himself. "The Beaufort Farm and Estate." "The Beaufort Farm and Estate?" says Valentine. And with these words he feels as though his spell has been broken. "Yes, the farm has been taken over by the war veterans, of course." "Of course. The Beaufort farm and estate being taken over by the war veterans had made the headlines some years before. The organization had not intervened in any way until now. The man himself shifts his gaze away from Valentine to a pile of dusty papers resting on a window ledge behind Valentine. While we appreciate their service to this country, their self-sacrifice during the war, they are squatting on the land illegally, and something will obviously have to be done about that, the man himself says to the pile of papers. Obviously. The man himself shifts his gaze back to Valentine. Mischief, malice, mayhem. I knew you would understand, the man himself says. I knew you were the man for the job. The man himself leans heavily on his cane and then struggles to stand up. The scrape of the chair along the floor takes Valentine back to the classroom, where the man himself is screaming, "Me, me, me," trying to get the attention of the ever-disinterested British schoolmaster. Beatrice Byte Beaufort still has the title deeds. Legally, the farm belongs to her, the man himself says, as he returns the precious and beautiful something to his pocket. I see. I knew you would. Chapter 7. Cookie. Cookie Carmichael puts her hand on the door handle and takes a deep breath. She does this once every week, and it never gets any easier. She looks at her liver-spotted and wrinkled hand and grimaces. When did she become so bloody old? How did she allow this to happen to her? She studies her reflection in the rearview mirror, a shriveled, sunburnt face with a smear of strawberry red lipstick. Ugh! It is a sound that comes from the back of her throat in disgust. Perhaps she looks good for 81, but to be honest, she has no idea what a good-looking 81-year-old should look like. It had never occurred to her that she would live this long, and if it had occurred to her, she would probably have thought she would be a blithering idiot by now. But no. Unfortunately, Cookie has all her wits about her, a brain as sharp as it was 50 years ago, sharp enough now to let her know that she looks like a prune. Enough of that, Kix, she says out loud, clapping her hands together to snap herself out of it. She lifts her cardigan and the biscuit packets that she has concealed in it off the passenger seat. She places the package securely under her arm before pushing open the door with some effort. When did the door become so damn heavy? She gets out of the car as quickly as her years allow. Standing in the bright sunshine, she takes a deep breath, and without allowing herself to give it a moment's thought, she marches towards the building. The Princess Margaret Retirement Home. She supposes it is a kindness to call it a retirement home, instead of what it really is, a home for the old, abandoned, misbegotten, and forgotten. The pastel-coloured decor and Vera Lynn singing The White Cliffs of Dover make Cookie want to turn right back around as soon as she enters, but she steels herself and forces a smile. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Carmichael." A bevy of black beauties, all smiles, say from behind the reception desk. "Good afternoon, ladies," Cookie says in her gruff, I-used-to-smoke-a-pack of Everest a day voice. "She's waiting for you," the bevy of black beauties say in unison. "Thank you," Cookie says, her strawberry red smile still plastered on her face, the strain of it beginning to show. She strongly suspects that there is lipstick on her two front teeth, but she cannot stop smiling. She has to answer every single "Good afternoon, Mrs. Carmichael" that will inevitably accompany her down the corridor with the same strained smile and a good afternoon of her own. Time was the staff at the Princess Margaret were all white. Now they are all black. Time was Cookie would not have cared either way. Now she does. The past 10 years have had her talking about them more and more. Cookie does not want to be misunderstood. She is not a racist. She does not have a racist bone in her body. She is a liberal, has been ever since she married Todd Whitehead Carmichael in 1981. So no, she is not a racist. She is just a frustrated liberal. "Good afternoon, Mrs. Carmichael." "Good afternoon." They always seem so nice and friendly, but they are really wolves in sheep's clothing, and if you give them an inch, they will run the country into the ground and let it go to the dogs. "Here goes," she says under her breath as she inhales deeply before opening the door. The room looks warm and wonderful in the sunlight that streams through the peach curtains. This is why Cookie always comes in the afternoon, for the blushing light. She once came in the evening, and the room had been positively depressing. The room is furnished well. All the furniture belongs to Beatrice. Kuki is sure that this is what the inhabitants appreciate about the Princess Margaret. It allows them to bring their former homes to the home. This does not stop their furniture from seeming more and more like museum pieces, or their bodies from seeming more and more like relics as time goes by, but it is still a considerate gesture. "Kix?" a voice says from within the folds of a peach curtain. It's Beatrice Bite Beaufort. Kuki genuinely smiles at her friend and stretches her arms out for a big, satisfying hug. "Yes, Bee, it's me." They hug. Kuki avoids Beatrice's eyes as they both sit down on the sofa. She does not want to see the faraway look that will inevitably enter Beatrice's eyes. It has been 6 months now, and Kuki has yet to reconcile herself to the fact that Beatrice has Alzheimer's. Today is a good day. Today started with recognition. But Kuki now knows better than to hope that the entire visit will be good. "My nails are such a mess," Beatrice says, looking at her hands. "I've been waiting for Jeanie, but she has not come." She smiles apologetically as her hands pat her hair. "I must look awful." Kuki pats Beatrice's hand reassuringly. "You look lovely, dear. Absolutely lovely." Suddenly feeling cold, she unfolds her cardigan and reveals the packets of stowed-away biscuits. "Look what I brought you," Kuki says, holding up the biscuits like treasures. "Highlanders and tennis biscuits." Beatrice makes a sound of pure delight. "Oh, Kix, you're the bestest friend a girl could ask for." "Let me pop the kettle on," Kuki says, as she makes her way to the electric kettle that sits on a table in the corner, surrounded by sachets of teas with exotic names, teacups, saucers, teaspoons, and a small bowl full of sugar cubes. Electric kettles are rare at the Princess Margaret. Only the good patients are allowed to have them. As Kuki clicks on the kettle, she takes comfort in the fact that her friend is considered a good patient. "My nails are positively grotesque. Imagine what Matron Stinkerbockers would say if she saw them," Beatrice says, her voice carrying laughter within it. Stinkerbockers. It has been many years since either of them used the word. Its unexpectedness makes it even funnier. Kuki laughs heartily. Tears sting her eyes. She wipes them away. What do you know? It is going to be a good visit after all. "I think we should go visit her," says Beatrice. "Visit who, dear?" Kuki asks, suddenly apprehensive, but trying to sound nonchalant as she pours the just-boiled water over the tea bags and the teacups. The aroma of jasmine fills the air. Stinkerbockers, or rather Madame Polvy, has been dead for decades. "Jeanie!" "I told you that Valentine Tanaka from the organization is coming to talk to you about the farm. We spoke about this over the phone earlier today. You remember?" "Of course I remember, but I refuse to be in this disheveled and unkempt state any longer. I need grooming. I need Jeanie." "Perhaps we can visit Jeanie after we talk to Valentine," Kuki says, delicately handing Beatrice a teacup and saucer. From the moment Beatrice had entered the Princess Margaret, Jeanie and Kuki had made an agreement with one another. Jeanie would come to visit Beatrice, Miss B to her, twice a month, and take her on a girls' day out to the spa or to the hair salon. They would have manicures, pedicures, massages, incongruous hairstyles, giggles, and thick, generous slices of chocolate cake. And once a week, Kuki would come for tea and sympathy. Kuki would have loved to have come more often, but it broke her heart to see her friend, her best friend, in here like this. Jeanie could spend more time with a Beatrice who forgot more than she remembered, because Jeanie had not known Beatrice when Beatrice could not have cared a jot about her nails, her hair, or Stinkerbockers. It seemed to Kuki to be more than a simple twist of fate, that Jeanie was the daughter of Golide Gumede, the very man who had shot down Beatrice's plane during the war. When Kuki had shared that news with Beatrice, she had had no idea that it would lead to a beautiful friendship between Beatrice Bite Beaufort and Imogen Zula Nyoni. They had too much in common: a love of sunflowers, a childhood lived on the Beaufort farm and estate, a hero for a father, and a brave defiant spirit, for their differences in age and race to matter. There is a hesitant knock on the door before one of the black beauties, apologetically so, lets a man into the room. "Valentine," Kooky says, automatically pouring him a cup of tea. What is all this business about Beaufort all of a sudden? Kooky, Beatrice, Valentine says, accepting the cup of jasmine-scented tea and sitting himself on the chair facing Beatrice. Why the interest in Beaufort? Well, as you know, war veterans have settled on the farm. Have been settled there for years. Well, that is an illegal act. We know it is. We would like to evict them from the land. Who is we? The organization. You mean your boss? I mean the organization. Why now? Well, as they say, there is no time like the present. All we need from Beatrice are the title deeds. Don't have them? Beatrice says. What do you mean, you don't have them? Kooky asks. I mean just that. I no longer have them. I sold the land. To whom? Kooky and Valentine ask simultaneously. The survivors. The survivors? The survivors. They bought the land fair and square for $1, not a penny more, not a penny less. Chapter 8. Jeanie. The discovery of the precious and beautiful something lets Jeanie know what she needs to do next. She needs to send the 1965 World Atlas to Marcus. She needs to send a postcard with the image of the Victoria Falls on it to Crystal. She needs to trust in the efficacy of the postal system to get these things safely to America. She needs to send a colourful bird to Menentle and Mordecai. She needs to take Beatrice for a spa day. But first of all, she needs to stop taking her medication without Vida noticing.